I'm obviously Dr. Vince McNally, qualified as a veterinary surgeon in 1983, so this is our 40th year. Went to work for the PA in Old Trafford for 3 years, which was tremendous experience. I mean, it's very heartwarming environment to work in because there was no consideration about financial constraints and all this kind of thing. So we literally provided pet parents with the best possible treatment for their pets in return for a nominal donation. So there was no pressure put on what we could or couldn't do. It was all focused on an individual dog and cat's welfare, which was just fabulous for a young student coming out of veterinary college. All of my contemporaries had to go into private practice where there were all sorts of issues. They had to follow practice guidelines, and there was something, the whole money element really, which I didn't want to get into at that point in time. So I was there for 3 years, fantastic experience, spent nearly 3 years specialising in orthopaedics at the PA. Was about to take the orthopaedic qualifications, and then a practice came up which I wanted to take over. I felt ready. I'd learnt enough to be able to go it on my own and forge a path with the philosophy that was forming at that time, which was to provide the level of care to pet parents, dogs and cats, in the same way that we would do for our own. And this stems from an early childhood experience when I was about 5 or 6, and we tragically lost a family cat who knocked a bottle of disinfectant off a shelf and got covered in this disinfectant. Before we could grab hold of Tina, she was out the door and went missing for about 2 weeks. When she came back, she'd ingested all this disinfectant that she'd cleaned from her coat. She was immaculate, but she'd removed all. It was a phenolic disinfectant which destroyed her kidneys. So when she came back, she was in a really bad state. We took her to the vet, and there was nothing that can be done. So we brought her back to nursery and be with her and give her as good a quality of care, palliative care, as we could until she passed away. I can still remember that now. It's my clearest memory thinking back of Tina passing her out, and I was lying there on the carpet with a little piece of a mirror in front of her nose, watching for her breath to miss the mirror. And as soon as it stopped, it broke my heart. It was a tremendous feeling of powerlessness, really, that nothing could be done to help her. And I'd always had a strong affinity with animals from the moment that I can remember. And that was the spur behind becoming a vet. And it's been the same ever since, and it's never changed. There's been various kind of avenues explored along the way. But for 40 years, that's been my passion. It still is. So that set the path to becoming a veterinary surgeon. Now, when I qualified, it was fabulous, as I said, lots of experience, lots of cases and diseases that my contemporaries just didn't see because of the location in a urban environment. It was in Manchester. So from that point of view, I was very lucky in being able to not only see a whole range of conditions that most vets don't get to see, or at least not see in great numbers, and to be able to treat them effectively from the point of view of what is best for the animal rather than looking at any other considerations. I then moved to Stockport in 1987 and founded the Albany Veterinary Clinic there. And the idea was for it to become a centre of excellence and care. For the first 10 years, it was largely run along conventional veterinary clinic lines, because obviously that was what I was trained in, and that's what I was pursuing, particularly with the orthopaedics. As the time went by, however, I became increasingly frustrated with the conventional approach to medicine. And despite all the training that we had, and the surgical training as well as medical, it seemed to come down to largely prescribing antibiotics for infections, anti-inflammatories for reaching any inflammatory condition, and then a few other drugs besides. So all that training and knowledge came down to a tiny medical number of options. And I find it frustrating that most of the pets that we were trying to help ended up on long-term medication unless it was an acute disease. So the usual kind of culprits, itchy skins, chronic scratching, inflammatory bowel disease, which was nowhere near the level it is these days, which we can come on to a little bit later. And it was very frustrating for me. And a number of events happened which made me kind of start saying, well, look, the body's capable of doing extraordinary things. Why aren't we looking at stimulating the body to heal itself rather than stepping in and intervening and trying to do what the body should be able to do if it's otherwise healthy. What are the obstacles to the body rebalancing the immune system so that it's not reacting to innocuous substances in the environment, to ending the inflammation in the guts, for example, because all inflammation is a circle. Something triggers an immune response and a reaction, all the healing processes come into play. But once the healing reaction is completed, it should loop back and switch off. The job's done. But in a lot of these conditions, the inflammation goes on and on and on and on. So that set me off a path exploring, well, what can be done? So I studied a whole range of different systems of medicine around the world. I did traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, homeopathy, herbal medicine, a few others as well beside. Not only in the UK, but in the US, China, India, Sri Lanka. And what I discovered was that a whole system of medicine outside of the conventional framework, a whole series of systems of medicine, were looking at ways in which working with the body to help itself rather than using various kinds of interventions to try and rectify what was going on. And that started the use and the implication of natural supplements. So this is going back to the mid-1990s. Now, the challenge was we started to feed dogs naturally. As part of that, we realized that you can't create optimum health in pets without getting the diet right. The nutrition is the key of all health. Sounds obvious and it's often said, but it literally is the foundation for what comes afterwards. You can't build a house without a foundation. Everything falls down unless you've got that foundation in place. And for pets, it has to be a healthy, balanced, nutritious diet. And of course, at that point, most of the pets we were seeing, nearly all, were being fed on commercial pet food of one sort or another, whether it's kibble or tin food. So we started to look at feeding naturally and introducing the use of home-cooked and raw-fed diets as a basis of building the rest of the health on. On top of that, we wanted to add in supplements which would have specific benefits for the body, which would support different aspects of healing. The big challenge was there was not much information on this around at the time. There were texts on, like culpepers, for example, on different use of herbs and Chinese medicine, that kind of thing. But nearly all this volume of information is based on use in people, not in animals or not in any large scale. So we found that it was actually very disappointing in a lot of occasions using supplements and plants and remedies, what have you, that were believed to have a beneficial effect in the areas of health that we were using them for, but we weren't getting the results that we wanted. And one of the reasons for that, as I say, is because all the data and the data we were using to guide us in the selection of the natural supplements were based on human use. So we actually had to start from the ground up, sourcing and using ingredients in a clinical setting that would actually positively influence health and produce significant results. And that's what we did. To sum up that period, we spent the next, from that point, mid-1990s, till about around 2000 and just after, perfecting the blends, the formulations of the natural supplements we produced. And we were starting to get really fabulous results. We're starting to get pets recovering from problems and attaining levels of health that had prior been unavailable to them. And nearly all of these, and this has been the case since, are pets that have been down the conventional route and nothing else has helped. So to get any kind of response is really quite something. The next step after we developed the supplements was to refine them, and then we started to produce natural remedies in the same way. And more lately, we've started to provide consulting services in terms of providing information and advice. So that the whole cycle now means that everything that we can possibly provide to help elevate a pet's health status from one level to another is all there. The advice on what kind of a diet to feed, what kind of a natural diet. On top of that, then you added supplements which help to produce a balanced and complete diet, but also adding ingredients to the diet which aren't available in normal foods. It's a common question as well. If a dog's having or a cat is having a balanced diet, what do you need supplements for? Well, the reason for that is First of all, modern day foods are nowhere near as rich as they used to be. I mean, the nutrient content of foods has plummeted in the last 100 years because of intensive farming. That's the first thing. The second thing is there are lots of foods worldwide. I mean, nature's cornucopia is extraordinary. And there's a whole selection of nutrients out there which can support different aspects of dogs and cats' health, which aren't in ordinary foods that we eat. So there's a dual purpose to using supplements. One is for their nutritional benefits, to make sure that the body is getting the nutrients they need and all these demands are being met. The second is to add in special nutrients which work on the immune system, the digestive system, psychological and emotional health, and all this kind of thing. So the supplements there come in as a second phase on top of the foundation of health, and then there are remedies and various ways of approaching the whole aspect of holistic health. And that's where we are now. So we spend nearly all our time providing advice and providing natural products which are really unparalleled, really, in the veterinary world. Each element is designed to complement and integrate with the others. And there's a limitless ways in which these can be combined. A pet might only need one or a change of diet, or it may need a number. But there's a way now of really changing the health for any pet using the combination of the supplements and a good, healthy diet. There are chronic and serious diseases which can't be reversed, but even in those cases, quality of life can be enhanced very often in a way that wasn't originally thought possible. If you have a look at our blog page, for example, you'll see cases there where dogs were given 2 to 4 weeks to live because they've got incurable diseases, such as Lexi, for example, who had intestinal lymphosarcoma and had been to a prominent veterinary clinic in this country for referral work and this, that, and the other, and chemotherapy, and nothing could be done. And came to us, raw food diet, natural supplements, specific remedies, lived a hugely positive and enjoyable life for nearly a year afterwards. Same happened with Pippa, brain tumor. A year, given 2 to 4 weeks to live. We've got 2 dogs at the moment with anal sac carcinomas 7 months down the line, are living life to the full with no sign that the carcinomas are causing any problems or have grown. So, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this, we're constantly getting asked by people what can be done to help the pet, or is there any hope for their particular animal? And we always like to be completely honest. We like to say, well, all you can do is provide the best possible care. The rest is out of your hands. We don't know what the body is capable of doing, but we have been astonished on numerous occasions, when the right care and support has been provided. And it's holistic. Holistic is often bandied around. It's a term that means different things to different people, but in essence, all it means is looking at the whole pet, mentally, emotionally, physically. And the more of those particular needs you can meet in a particular pet, the greater the degree of change that's possible. Same as applies to people. So that's kind of a quick preamble. There's an awful lot which I've missed out, but I hope that gives some flavour of where we're coming from, the passion that we have to carry on doing what we're doing. I keep getting asked, am I retiring? And there's no chance of that just yet, because there's still too much to do. But we really want, our vision is to create a viable alternative to conventional veterinary treatment for most pet parents to be able to access, up to the point where conventional veterinary treatment is necessary. So there's so much can be done to help pets before the steroids come out, or the Aquaquel comes out, or the Atopica, or antibiotics are given unnecessarily. So I hope that gives some flavour of what we're doing.